Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of CFL Football Talk. As you know, the CFL conclusion arrived with the Montreal Alouettes winning the Grey Cup. So here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250, please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all small smart TVs 2016 forward. And don't forget to join us on Candid Stanisci 1030 on YouTube. Now joining me is the brains of the operation, David Morassutti. David, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Hoping the brain is going to be working at capacity, I guess, for the next hour.
Welcome to the program. And for those of you that are watching, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy what we have to say. And you could play along if you like. You can message us and hopefully we'll respond to whatever you have to ask. I guess, David, we haven't really had that much of a chance to talk about some things in the Canadian Football League. Which ones do you think are the stories that we should or can talk about?
Well, I mean, we pretty much spent a good part of the show last week wondering why didn't the Hamilton Tiger Cats name Scott Milanovich the head coach when they made the management changes, only for the next day for them to name Scott Milanovich the next head coach of the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
They always do those things after the show. It's like they're watching and they're going, we're not going to tell them. We're not going to let them talk about it. But we pretty much said everything that needed to be said about that situation. We knew he was going to be hired. Why did we know he was going to be hired? Because the one other job that he may have been employed for was the Regina team, the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Well, the former Argo defensive coordinator, Corey Mace, took that job. And it pretty much was a done deal in my mind. And I know you agreed with me. And as it turned out, they did finally announce that he was the head coach. Now, maybe they wanted some space in between the announcement by Saskatchewan. Maybe there were a couple of, fine points they needed to iron out. And the signature wasn't going to be put on the contract until the two of them or one of them or either of them were happy with the arrangement and they understood going forward what the next steps would be.
Yeah, you have to make sure that everyone's on board, right, with the plan, right? You're not bringing a head coach who, may not have been fully comfortable with how things went last year and may have his own ideas, and if it doesn't line up with what they want to do, what the team wants to do, guess what? That guy's not going to get the job, right?
Absolutely.
Pretty simple, right, in that regard. So I know that some people are curious of the decision to hire Milanovich, but it's like you're getting a guy who has won multiple Grey Cups, one as a head coach, a couple as an assistant, one that knows the CFL game very well, and one that will hopefully help the most important position on your roster that has been an issue since you last went to the Grey Cup, and even then there was some question marks about that position anyways. Like, I think it's a smart hire. I think you couldn't really go with an unproven person at that position if that was what they were planning to do.
I think it's safe to say that they did what they did because it was important that they take the next step. And the next step for the Hamilton Tiger Cats is kind of hopscotching around, right? Because, they were at 2 Grey Cups in a row. They couldn't figure out how to get it done. They have since not had a very successful couple of years. They've regressed, they've done what they could in as far as, in their minds at least, get the best quarterback available in Bo Levi Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, it didn't work out for them. There was clearly a relationship issue, which we could surmise what the problem was. And the question now becomes, was Milanovich interested in having Bo Levi Mitchell? I'm wondering that for that amount of money, I'm not sure Milanovic wants Bo Levi Mitchell. Milanovic knows more than anybody, in my opinion. This is just an opinion. He's not calling me and asking me for advice.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact remains, he's a pretty smart quarterback coach, right? He knows what's going on in the Canadian Football League. He also knows one of the most important factors in making a quarterback's life good and him become being able to execute the plays that he wants played. He needs an offensive line, and every dollar he gives more than he feels he should give to the quarterback is money that could be spent on the offensive line. That's my opinion. I'm not, I originally was against Hamilton doing what they did with Bo Levi Mitchell. Love the guy, love the player. He's going to be, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, well deserved. But there is a reality about cost.
Mm-hmm. There is, and look, if you are looking to get the most out of Bo Levi Mitchell at a older age, or even in the later years of his career, Scott Milanovic can probably do that. Scott Milanovic, let's not forget, wasn't. I don't think he was with the team right at the beginning.
Mm-mm.
Right? Because he was a consultant, he wasn't really a coach, right? I'm just trying to remember when exactly he joined the organization.
I think he joined the organization the year before, at the end. Because what you're thinking is he didn't start at the beginning of the season. It wasn't this year that he didn't start at the beginning of the season as the offensive coordinator, but he did later in the season. I'm just wondering whether he was there last year. I'm beginning to wonder. Jim left the year 2 years before that, so it might have been last year that he was there. You can check. I think he was there last year as a consultant, and then this year
he joined the Tiger Cats as a senior assistant coach.
When?
I'm trying to figure that out.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to figure out when exactly that happened, because the issue is, I mean, if you try to look back at the date, maybe it was in May. So he was there for training camp. He was there May of 2023. He was hired back in May, so he would have been there for camp. So yeah, but to me, it's like now he can put a little bit more of his stamp on the team, because Steinauer comes from the defensive line. But I would assume that if Steinauer has Milanovic there as an assistant coach, his role was also to be, you are going to look after the offensive side of the ball, because that's Milanovic's specialty.
Yeah.
Right? But we also not forget, they had an offensive coordinator there who eventually, mutual parting of ways, another way of saying, this is not working, we need to go in a different direction.
I wonder if that meant also that he was willing to walk away from his contract, because that would have helped.
Well, I don't know, though. I don't know how that works exactly. Personally, I don't think you're going to walk away from money that's owed to you through a deal. But Milanovic was already on staff, so I'm guessing they would have figured out a way to make that all work.
Because he'd need a bump.
Yep, of course. I mean, now he's getting a bump. Steinauer, I don't know how much of how that whole, again, we don't know exactly how it's all working out. But I'm very curious to see how the changes kind of change the way that the team operates. Because let's be honest, the team, some will say they, from 2019, 2021, they, those 2 years where they were back to back in the Grey Cup. Something between that time, from 2021 on, that team has had letdown after letdown after letdown, and something needed to change. And now you're getting as much of it as you could probably expect at this point. Because now the next move, potentially, if it turns out this way, it's that people upstairs have to start losing jobs, because this is a team that cannot, and I repeat, cannot go years without being competitive, right? They were technically in the playoffs, yes, but this isn't the competitive Hamilton Tiger Cats team that we saw for all those years before,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
I don't know, got there.
for sure. But also, David, they've got a coach who has experience on having a team. Now remember, he led the Argos to the Grey Cup in 12.
Mm-hmm.
And he also led the Argos in the Grey Cup in 17.
No, that was Tressman.
Was that? Oh, that's. I'm sorry. Yes, yes, yes. It was Tress.
But the Argos were still competitive from when he joined in 2012 up until like 2016 was their bad year when he
Absolutely
was let go at the end of the year. But
right.
2015, they were 2012 to 2015. They were competitively there. They only made the Grey Cup the 1 year, but they were there and lost to good Hamilton teams. Right, Hamilton team and an Ottawa team along the way.
Yeah, he took a 9-9 team to the Grey Cup, and the point I'm trying to make is that he knows how to. What Hamilton hasn't been able to do is to win a Grey Cup with a powerful team. And you know what? Being powerful during the season, we've learned this year, if this year's any indication, and past years, Ottawa, Toronto, we've talked about that. Was I surprised that Montreal beat Toronto? Absolutely not. Was I surprised that Montreal beat Winnipeg? No, I called them to win. For me, it's about a coach who understands how to get to the point of momentum and how to maintain that momentum. The Canadian Football League, it really is the big story when the season starts. The beginning of the season is yeah, we're playing, okay, we're doing it, okay, that's everything's good. Oh, here comes Labor Day, and then those are the games that everybody starts going, okay, these games really mean a lot, and they really start playing the game, right? And it's from that point on how you play going into the playoffs becomes very, very relevant. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is Milanovic knows that more than anybody. His Argo team, that's what they did. They got on a roll just like Montreal. They won going into the playoffs. They made it. They beat Montreal that was in first. They did to what Toronto had done to them by Montreal, and went on to win a Grey Cup. So the Alouettes just did, and as I discussed before the Grey Cup, that they could turn the favor around. And Milanovic understands the game in a way that leads to winning. And I really do believe winning is something that it really helps you in understanding the Canadian Football League. And I think he understands it. And I think Hamilton made a good choice here in bringing him in.
I think so too. No, I do think so. You get a little bit of continuity, like sometimes, yeah, it's nice to get a fresh face in there, but he was there for a year. He probably could tell the team what exactly wasn't working for them.
And that lag, I think, was a bit of conversation about, like I said, where they plan to go. So good for them on that. I want to remind everybody that free agency starts on February 13th. Important date to me. So between now and then, a lot of teams are going to be making decisions about who the free agents are that they want to pick up, and they'll do their best to sign players before then. So this is between now and you have Christmas and New Year's in the way, and then you have a full month of January to decide who you're going to sign, or and then comes free agency like we talk about, and that's when they'll start filling in the gaps. And then whatever they do, it'll also the draft, because we've learned the last couple of years that the rookies are doing really well in the Canadian Football League. The Canadians that come in their first year, we've seen a lot of success this past year with rookies that have done an incredible job. Oh, top Canadian in the Grey Cup. How much more do you want proof of that?
Well, we've already started to see some of the free agents taken off the board. Montreal, not only did they extend their quarterback another year, they gave Fajardo until the end of the 2025 season. Both Sean Lemon and Darnell Sankey have been extended for another year, so that's important for them. The Argos, I know, made 3 extensions. Isaiah Cage was today, offensive lineman. Another offensive lineman, Dylan Giffen, and a defensive back in Maurice Carnell the fourth. He was also extended. So teams are trying right now to get that list knock off. Oh yeah, Willie Jefferson I think also signed like the day after we did our show.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the team right there. That's the team right there. I'm very curious to see what Winnipeg does because they kind of made it known that that might have been the last time for that group as it currently stands.
It's like that every year. Just the question that you're raising is much more than,
But you know what? Like the team, it's 2 straight years where we have a letdown like that in the Grey Cup. That I don't know if it officially ended the dynasty talk, but it sure poured a lot of cold water on it. Like you look at this free agent list that Winnipeg currently has. Brandon Alexander, Johnny Augustine, Rasheed Bailey, Jesse Briggs, Drew Brown. I mean, one of the more important names right there, Drew Brown. Stanley Bryan, Sergio Castillo, Malik Clemens, Brian Cole, Alden Darby Jr. I'm going to probably list some of the more well-known names for people. Demario Houston, Jackson Jeffcoat. They got Jefferson done.
he's the guy.
Right.
Of all the names you mentioned, it's Jeffcoat. Jeffcoat's very important for that defense.
Brady Oliveira, Dakota Prukop, Dalton Schoen, and Drew Wolotarski. All those names, there's a lot of important names. Brady Oliveira, obviously one of them. Dalton Schoen, another one. Like a lot of their offensive guys. But to me, the name to keep an eye on is Drew Brown. Because
I agree with you, sure.
Because we all know the one position in this league that remains the toughest to get that guy. It's the quarterback position. Drew Brown at 26 years old, he's not an unknown commodity anymore. He made a few starts for Winnipeg, and in the starts he made, or in the games he did play, I think let's look at the one against Winnipeg. Not Winnipeg, against Edmonton. That would have been week 10 against Edmonton. He completed 17 passes for 307 yards, 4 touchdowns. Again, this is when Edmonton wasn't really great, but he still played well. Last game of the season, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. This is a quarterback here that I think if you're a team like Calgary, if you're a team like Saskatchewan, if you're a team like Ottawa, if you're a team, maybe even Hamilton, that's not settled on their number one quarterback position, there might be some interest in Drew Brown. Just saying. If I'm Winnipeg and you know that Drew Brown is looking to take that next step and isn't looking to resign, trade him. Get something for him, even if it's just do what I guess Calgary when Arbuckle left, they got something from Ottawa. That's something I would consider doing. And here's a proposition I have for you for today's show. Let's say Drew Brown goes to, let's say, Saskatchewan or any team but Winnipeg. If you are the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Scott Milanovich worked with one particular quarterback that you and I know very well. Hey, Trevor, would you be interested in a little reunion?
Yeah.
For Harris and Hamilton? I know he liked what he did in Saskatchewan, but
health,
not just health, familiarity. Work with a quarterback, work with a coach that, let's be honest here, got him his start in the CFL.
And you're basically saying the same thing that happened with Montreal, right? Yeah, the head coach went to Montreal and he said, "I know that quarterback. I'll bring him with me." Mm-hmm. So that could be something that could happen. I really believe that Drew Brown is going to draw a lot of interest. The irony, I'll put the irony out there, and that is that Winnipeg finds himself now with a backup quarterback of a good reputation, much like the Argos did when they lost Caleros to Hamilton. the same kind of idea. And I wonder if Milanovic is, what he's thinking that he needs is a quarterback. Would he be willing to say, "Hey, let's go get this Drew Brown guy"? They'll have to pay him a little bit, right? They won't have to pay him super starter money, but they'll
They
have to
won't
give
have
him
to
a
pay him
decent.
Levi Mitchell money.
Yeah, they won't have to give him Bo Levi Mitchell. Well, the money that they gave Bo, I don't think anyway, and he might be a better fit in Hamilton. The biggest thing that Hamilton with Milanovic that I think what we'll see, Milanovic has a way, and he's a part of. You talked about Harris. He's a part of Harris, Caleros, and Ray together on the same practice field. So he knows how to deal with talented, a handful of talented quarterbacks. So he could in fact bring Brown in, and I still think they've got a pretty good quarterback in Hamilton, other than you know than Bo Levi Mitchell, and I think they might go for something like that. But I like what you said about Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, it would be one of
They're the
those.
biggest wild card to me.
Well, to be doing two things, right? They'd be strengthening their quarterback position and weakening their main opponent in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
This is what Zach Claro said at the end of the year about Drew Brown. Under the right leadership and coaching and play calling and all those things, I think he can be one of the best, if not the best guy in the league. I truly feel that way about Drew. If you're the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, you're like, Zach, don't say that. But it's a reality. I saw it as soon as he made that first start when Winnipeg, not even his first start, when he came in for Caleros.
Yep.
I said Winnipeg's not gonna be able to keep this guy. This is like when Toronto had behind Ricky Ray. I think this is a fair comparison when they had Caleros
And
and
Harris.
they had Trevor Harris.
It's exactly the same thing.
You cannot expect to keep those guys because eventually those guys are like, I want to start. I want to make starters money, or I want to, right? He's 26. He's coming at this at a perfect age too, right?
Yeah, he's
What
young
would have
enough
been
with enough experience.
what would have been a slam dunk for all this? And if you're Saskatchewan, I know. I'm glad. I'm happy for Corey Mace. I'm glad for Corey Mace. But the best route to do all this, you hired Buck Pierce as your head coach. Buck Pierce tells the general manager, I want Drew Brown as my quarterback. Drew Brown's like, I know this guy. He was my quarterback's coach and my offensive coordinator for so many years. Bing bang. You already could have taken his name off the board, in my opinion.
Well, I agree with you. I think a better fit for Saskatchewan would have been moving the head coach from the offensive coordinator from Winnipeg to Saskatchewan. I'm curious to see. Um, Corey Mace is awesome. Like, he's done nothing but great things wherever he's been, and he's been a quick study. He came here not as a defensive coordinator. He became a defensive coordinator in Toronto, and he picked it up pretty quick. So now he's going to pick up being a head coach. But I really believe in some ways in the Canadian Football League, I think head coaches that have an offensive experience, I think, have a better chance of being successful. It doesn't mean they can't be successful if they're defensive coordinators or special teams coaches. It's just I think you have a better shot if you understand offense in the Canadian Football League.
No, I do think so. And we know who the offensive coordinator is there now. The name is Mark Mueller. He's the offensive coordinator. So, Mueller spent time. I think he started his career in Calgary, which is funny because he started his career in Calgary as a defensive assistant, but then he became the quarterbacks coach from 2020 to 2023. But he's been with Calgary since 2014. So this is obviously somebody Corey Mace knows very well. and I'm curious to know where he because the quarterbacks coach and the offensive coordinator is going to have a huge say in who the team decides to go with at quarterback,
Absolutely.
right? If the head coach obviously will have a big say, but if your offensive coordinator or quarterbacks coach doesn't have faith in the guy you bring, he has to sign off. So I think he's the key if you're Saskatchewan to knowing who exactly is the quarterback. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure where exactly, because he's been in Calgary for so long. I doubt they would even look at bringing in a guy from Calgary. I don't even think Jake Mears signed. Tommy Stevens re-signed. Personally, I think if you ask any of the Calgary Stampeders fans, they will drive Jake Mears to Saskatchewan if they needed to. So yeah, Saskatchewan. That's a team where they could be. We know the West is going to be a very interesting division because people are wondering if Winnipeg can keep this up. Although doubt Winnipeg at your own leisure, right, at your own risk. But Saskatchewan's a team that I think could make some trouble, right? We know Edmonton, if they do things right, they could be in the mix too. I think Saskatchewan's the team right now that they have a chance to really reset things the right way.
But the solution to their problem is on offense. That's where Corey Mason is going to have to make a difference. He can bring his great defensive thinking to Saskatchewan, but defense wasn't really a problem for Saskatchewan. Their problem has been offense. I think the main reason that they picked Corey Mason is because how much he wanted to be a Saskatchewan Roughrider head coach. Yeah.
Right.
So, well, it's going to be interesting. I think the East and the West are up for grabs. More than like, this is the year where the favorites from the past few years, like the Argos and Winnipeg, are going to take a step back. I really do believe they're going to take a step back. The question is, and this doesn't mean Argo fans get all irritated and Winnipeg fans. Oh, no, you're saying we're going to step back and now we're not going to have a chance at it. No. The Grey Cup, as we saw, requires you to play well in the back half of the season. If you can get a roll going, doesn't matter how many wins you have. All that matters is how well you're playing when you get to that point. And so, it's just a question of how they're going to come out of the gate. I think Toronto's going to have some adjustments to make with Corey Mace gone. And of course, Winnipeg's going to have to make some adjustments as well because of players who aren't going to be there. And then of course, you've talked about Saskatchewan. Well, how about Montreal? Montreal right now, in my mind, stands as the favorite to finish first in the East because of Hamilton and Toronto being in transition. Both of them now are in transition. Toronto's got to recover their defensive game, which was a key component to winning a lot of games. For Hamilton, if they can straighten out their offense, their defense has always been reasonably good. It's been their offense that's been inconsistent. So, I really think that the Eastern Division, it won't necessarily be anything like it was this past year. And I think you're right about the Western Division as well.
No, I just see Toronto. You know what? They might say to themselves, we didn't really benefit from going, only losing 2 games last year. We didn't benefit from it. So some teams like to create some adversity for themselves. It's a reinvention, right? And I think Montreal, look, when you become the reigning Grey Cup champions, you're going to earn a little bit more. You're gonna they're gonna be a tougher team next year to go up against, right?
Yep.
I mean, I think they're going to be, the team to beat. I don't think so personally. I think they'll be I don't think it's their division to win because they didn't win the division last year. We've seen it before where teams win a Grey Cup and they've taken a bit of a step back. But I do think they'll be in the mix. And that's a team. I think it's like Toronto, Montreal right now, right? Now let's see how Montreal does when they're actually favored versus when apparently we have them as 9th and 10th. Listen now, Montreal, I ain't doing that. I ain't giving you bulletin board material. I'm putting you in that conversation for the division, right? So I am very much intrigued with this offseason because I do think there's a lot of room for things to be changed.
Okay, before we switch gears a little bit, the Lions have decided to bring back their whole coaching staff. All this talk about coaching, so they're going to be in the same place they were at the end of this season, starting next season. I wanted to talk about Patrick Mahomes. If we can go over to the NFL for a little bit. Last week, he was a really good sport about a call that didn't work. It hurt his team. It was a mistake by the officials, but he was very good about being very positive and saying that's the way it goes. It's football, right? And then this week, ironically, he gets upset about a call that was the right call.
It was embarrassing. Buffalo. It was embarrassing the way they were talking about that. I get it. Emotions run high. You're not always thinking clearly, but I'm sorry. You have a chance after the penalty was called to see it. First off, the refs. It's not the refs' job to go. Oh, hey, can you move? Can you move back a little bit? You're not lined up properly. No.
Well, Coach Reed suggested that that's what was missed by Tony. He didn't get the approval that he was okay where he was. A little nod from the line judge.
You can say, "Hey, ref, I'm good. Am I good?" If he did, I don't know if he did do that, but come on. Two things here. You're looking down the line. You can't notice you're not in line with the other receiver on the other side. You're not in line with where the ball is. And also, you're not in line with somebody on the sideline.
There's a stick there telling you where you should be.
Is there not someone on the sideline saying, he's not on side, move back?
Yeah.
And the only reason why, obviously, we're not talking about this is because they scored that touchdown that was called back.
Beautiful play.
If it was a play, if it was any other normal play, we're not talking about this today.
Wow! And what a pass by Kelsey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Coach Reed, like you said, Tony failed to check with the ref before the play. Is that what they do normally? I don't know. I assume that you should be able to handle being on site on your own. So I'm going to leave that there. The embarrassment is that it was such a great play that was wiped out. And an incredible win. The kind of win that's a very big confidence builder. KC, like Buffalo, has had some tough losses this year. Not as many as Buffalo. But, I think the best thing that can be said here is that Buffalo has given themselves a little chance to make the playoffs. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. Kansas City has to overcome 2 losses now back-to-back, one on a call that didn't work their way and one that was their fault, and it's too bad, but that's the fact. The fact is there was an offside. The officials made the right call. Sorry it ruined a great play, but the officials aren't there to make calls that are based on.
I said to somebody, imagine if they didn't make the call.
Oh, that would have been worse.
Like, you think Kansas City, someone said, well, it's a win, you celebrate a win, but you feel good winning knowing that you shouldn't have won. So, hey, Kansas City has, I'm sorry, how many games have they decided last year, well, not yet last year, but the offseason of last year, that they did not want Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, they had to move on from him because obviously money, but also they want to do other things. And they've been paying for that decision. Yeah, they won a Super Bowl, but those issues were around last year too, right? They had such a good game plan that it worked for them. They didn't win that game convincingly against the Eagles last year. And I'm sorry, they're punching above. They were a team punching above their weight too. And I also think that, that's a team there that needs to ring everyone in and be like, we can't be beating ourselves. They're not really losing. They're losing games because they're beating themselves more than sometimes than their opponents beating them. Like Buffalo didn't look that great.
They haven't looked that great for a while.
Like Buffalo can celebrate that win because they found a way to prevail. But that's not a that's to me that's a more of a oh my god we finally won a game rather than we can win, we can beat this team. So I think when you look at that game specifically, like Kansas City probably should have won that game. And when that penalty was called, you could tell Mahomes it was bothering him, and it impacted that fourth down play, and emotions just got to him. And it's unfortunate because you're not seeing that usually from Mahomes, but that's the nature of it.
To conclude the conversation about that game, Mahomes and Reed are under review by the NFL. Their post-game comments are being looked into.
They should be fined.
And we'll see what ends up happening. The next thing I wanted to talk about in the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys. You know, it seems for the past handful of years, they were the team that was supposed to make it. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sucking up to you. I'm just telling it like it is. For the past few years, David, they're a team that, you know, a lot of people had faith in before the season started, and they just didn't finish the way people thought they could. This year could be finally the year for the Dallas Cowboys. If it is, we know that they've been winning on a consistent basis. Their offense is outstanding. Their defense is pretty good too. Why do you think the odds on them winning this year a Super Bowl, what has caused the improvement in your mind?
Well, Dak Prescott has, I think, taken more command of this offense.
He's healthy too. That doesn't hurt.
He's healthy. He's playing with confidence. They're not trying to do too much. I think Jake Ferguson, the tight end, has really come in of his own this year. CeeDee Lamb, like we all know CeeDee Lamb's a good receiver, but he needs guys around him to do well. And it's funny because the running game hasn't been as good, you know, with Zeke Elliott gone. Tony Pollard's been good, but has not been as good as he was last year. But it's the defense. It's the defense. They give that team opportunities. So, you know, Micah Parsons is a star on that defense. They lose their top cornerback in Trevon Diggs, and they haven't missed a beat. The first game was bad. I think there was a lot of emotion in that game, and San Francisco was just beating up on everybody. But Deron Bland has been the unsung hero of this team. And, you know, yesterday, Stephon Gilmore, that trade, like, he has just been, you know, what this team needs, right? That veteran presence. Like that, the defensive back, the only concern I had with that defense was their ability to stop the pass. And they've shown that they can. Like that game against the Eagles, the physicality that they played with, I hadn't really seen from the Cowboys all year. And that's the type of play you're going to need if you're going to want to be in the conversation. So I think it was important for Dak to show that he could beat a team that was, you know, a contending team, because we kept hearing, oh, they're beating up on non-playoff teams. They're beating up on non-playoff teams. They beat the team with the best record in the NFL.
And the team people have ordained to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's a big win. I always tell people, though, as a Cowboys, somebody who has watched the Cowboys for a long time, means nothing until the playoffs.
Well,
these are important wins. These are building blocks. These are things they need to go through now. When they lost to the 49ers, it's good they lose to this now rather than the playoffs. Because now they can kind of realize what they need to do better. Because I still think it's the 49ers division to lose. They're the class of the NFC. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But, as we have seen this year, the 49ers are beatable. They are beatable. And the Cowboys need to have that attitude, right? They can't say, yes, you have to respect your opponent, but we can't respect them to the point where we're not playing our game.
I'll answer the question why I think what this year makes the Cowboys more successful. Their defense is still as good as it's been. The difference has been the defense have given Dak Prescott good field position, and he's taken advantage of it this year where he hasn't in the past. So it is teamwork, and defense can help with the offense, and I think it has with Dallas. And I think they've done well with the opportunities they've been given. And that's what football is all about. You have to execute when the opportunities present themselves. So essentially, I think very highly of Dallas. They were my team before about 4 or 5 years ago when I switched to Kansas City before Mahomes was there, by the way. Um, I really think that the Eagles have proven they're human, and that being the case, that's opened up the way they played the last 2 weeks has opened up the thinking of people for Dallas to get in there. There's other teams too that could, the Packers, they've been playing really well recently. So the NFC's up for grabs, at least mentally. People feel that it's quite a good possibility. I guess. What do you think of the Eagles? Is this just them running into two hot teams, or is there something to concern Eagles fans?
Well, that defense has they've tried trading for guys to help that defense. I mean, that defensive line is still a really good defensive line. I'm not going to denounce their defense completely, but they're making uncharacteristic mistakes like the fumbles in yesterday's game. But yeah, that defense has looked beatable. Their last two wins, they've allowed over 30 points. That's not a winning defense, right? And that's against teams that you're going to have to beat at the end of the year if you're going to want to be back in the Super Bowl. There's time for them to get back on track. They still control their destiny, right? I think they'll be like, you know what, we'd rather go through this now than have to deal with this in the playoffs. But they got to figure out something on defense. Although, and that's what wins you championships, right? They have the playmakers on offense, but they can't do it defensively. They need to be more physical. They lost the physical edge against the Cowboys, and they're not. I think they can turn. I think they can turn it around, but they got to figure it out soon because they still control their destiny in the NFC East, but the Cowboys, they got that emotional win, and they'll go keep going as long as the division is still up for grabs.
Yeah, absolutely. The team that surprised me and it has impressed me this year, even though they have a great young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, the Jaguars. They're the fourth seed now in the AFC, and I don't know if people would have thought that they would have been. I guess they would have if you just go by the quarterback they have.
Yeah,
Jacksonville's done a good job to protect Lawrence and to help him be effective.
that's a team that's been improving. It's ever since they got Trevor Lawrence, and you saw it last year that they were taking that next step. My concern with Jacksonville in the AFC is, you know, they lost to Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, who 3 weeks ago wasn't even, he was just at home, going, maybe someone calls me. Maybe I just sit here on the couch and watch football. They lost to Joe Flacco. Like that Cleveland team, I'm sorry. Their defense is really good. I'll give them that. But that offense, whew. Jacksonville, no, that's two tough losses right there. Trevor Lawrence, he fought through that ankle injury. I still think I think the Texans they peaked a little too early, and I think they're kind of if the Texans can't get back on track, I think the AFC South is theirs. I think that's going to be the Jaguars' route, and that's the problem. The AFC South, I thought it was going to be easy peasy for them in a way because I didn't think Houston was going to be competitive and pushing them. But there's still a chance. Even the Colts technically still have a chance.
Absolutely. They're
Right?
in there right now,
But I
but
think
they've got
Jacksonville is still the more complete team. And the Colts, you got to figure, can Gardner Minshew continue this? And with the Texans, how bad is C.J. Stroud's concussion?
yeah, and how much it must hurt being a Buffalo fan to know that your team, you know, is 11th with a 7-6
They're
record.
lower than the Denver Broncos,
Absolutely,
who
and
allowed over 70 points in a game this year. Like Buffalo, but and you were supposed, like, the AFC East was supposed to be not a cake walk, but that was
but
supposed to be their division.
yeah,
I don't know how Miami is doing right now as we're recording this. I think they were losing at halftime. I mean, Buffalo still has a chance in the AFC East if Miami loses a few games, but I do think that the Bills, they're in trouble.
they're
They're in
still losing
trouble.
to the Titans 10-7, David.
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, the Dolphins can beat the Titans. They're gonna have to figure out whatever the heck is going on with that. I haven't watched the game, but here's Buffalo's remaining schedule: Cowboys, good.
Ouch.
Chargers,
Big love.
potentially without Justin Herbert for the rest of the year. The Patriots, who always play them tough,
And they
and
played well recently.
the Dolphins. Buffalo does not have an easy path right now to the playoffs, and a little concerned that they may not make it.
Well, they need help too. You know, it's not just a question. It's not in their hands. They
Yeah.
could win all four and still not make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Dolphins just need to win 2 more games, and the division's theirs,
Absolutely.
right? So, if actually, no, sorry, 3 games. The Dolphins need to win 3 games. They need 12 wins because I think the Bills can max out at. I think they can max out at 10 wins, 10 or 11 wins, might be 11 wins. So, the Bills have to win out and pray that one of these teams doesn't.
The wheels come off.
Exactly. Yeah, not a good position to be in.
No, and they only have themselves to blame. And this off season's going. I know it's a little too early to talk about the off season, but I really can't believe that the off season is not on the mind of the management of the Buffalo Bills. I mean, I'm sure they're dreading this season coming to an end because all the questions are going to come. You were the favorite to take the conference. What happened?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have mistakes made by the head coach with finding motivation in the wrong place. I think that's enough. Everybody knows what happened there. All those things that basically create a situation where it's like you can't avoid the truth. The truth is they've made too many mistakes. They've done too many things wrong. And I really believe that Buffalo now in the offseason, their quarterback's going to want to see receivers that actually catch the ball. I mean, I can't blame the quarterback for what's going on. I don't think it was his fault. I saw a lot of games. I'm not a religious. I don't watch the NFL as much as I watch the Canadian Football League. But the little bit that I've watched, they could have won games they didn't win that would have put them in not just the hunt for a playoff spot, but a pretty secure place in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, they've been probably the most disappointing team in the NFL this season based on the expectations put on them, I would say.
The Ticats of the NFL.
Yep. They're very close to each other.
Yeah, they live close to each other. It's the water, I guess. Hey, David, this was awesome, man.
Thank you, Frank.
I look forward to doing it again.
Of course.
All right. He's David Morassutti. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Football Talk, airing live Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Network. For CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. And don't forget, Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube. Until next time, enjoy the football.